goose who laid golden eggs. Once upon a time, a poor peasant was seated at the door of his hut, wondering where he would get food for coming winter. He had no money to buy it with, and he was growing too old to work. As he sat there, a stranger appeared before him, carrying a beautiful white goose. "Take care of my goose," said the stranger, "and my goose will take care of you." He set the goose down on the ground and vanished as suddenly as he had appeared. Then the peasant knew that he was a fairy in disguise, and that the goose was an enchanted goose. So he took the great white bird into his cottage and gave her water to drink and his last handful of oatmeal to eat. When the goose had finished her supper, the peasant made her a nest to sleep in, out of warm, sweet hay. He went to bed himself and slept soundly. In the morning he was wakened by the triumphant cackling from the goose. Going to the nest, he looked inside. And what do you think he saw there? Nothing more nor less than a beautiful golden egg. How surprised and overjoyed the peasant was, to be sure. He picked up the egg and held it to the light, while the clever goose went on cackling proudly as if she knew what a wonderful thing she had done. The peasant hurried off to the nearest town and sold his golden egg for a great many pieces of money. Then he bought oats and wheat for the goose, and white bread and wine and honey for himself. Hastening back, he lit a fire in his cottage and sat down to an excellent breakfast, together with the goose. The next morning the same thing happened, and the next and the next. The peasant was soon able to buy new chairs and a table and warm clothes. Then he grew rich enough to buy a bigger house, and to plant a garden around it with trees and flowers. He made a special corner for the goose, who strolled contentedly under the rose trees on the lawn and laid a golden egg to shine in her nest as regularly as the sun rose to shine in the sky. But sad to tell, his riches began to turn into the peasant's heed. He grew more hard and greedy, and wanted more eggs. He began to wonder how many more eggs the goose had inside her, and to think he would like to have all the eggs at once, instead of getting 7 a week. So the unkind, cruel fellow one day killed the goose that laid the golden eggs. And when he opened her white body, there was not a single egg to be seen. He stared with horror-stricken eyes as the poor dead goose, and started to do his best to bring her back to life again. It was no good. While he was trying, all at once the stranger appeared again at his side. "I told you to take care of my goose, and my goose would take care of you," he said reproachfully. Then he picked up the dead goose and carried her away. And as he was a fairy, no doubt he knew how to bring her back to life again. But the greedy, cruel peasant began to grow poor as quickly as he had grown rich, for never again was he able to go to the goose's nest and gather her beautiful golden eggs. The Little Crab and the Big Crab. A little crab was crawling with its funny, hard-jointed legs across the rocks of the seashore and on its way to a cool and delightful pool of pink and green sea anemones. It went this way, and that way, and the other way. Not because it wanted to, but because it couldn't help it. A big crab, seated in the window of a weedy stone, was watching it with a pair of bulgy eyes set somewhere about its middle. Ignore that. "Oh, my dear little friend," said the big crab, condescendingly. "Where are you trying to get? Are you going north, south, east, or west?" "I am going to the anemone pool over there," said the little crab breathlessly, and it waved a tired claw vaguely over its shoulder. "Then walk straight," exclaimed the big crab. "You will never get anywhere at all if you walk so crookedly." The little crab sat down among the limpets and sighed. "Pray show me how to do so," it said. And it folded its legs as meekly beneath its body as the good little girl might fold her hands on her lap. Out came the crab from the seaweed and set off towards the anemone pool. But like the little crab, for all one knew, might have been going north, south, east, or west. It could no more walk straight than the little crab had been lecturing the little crab so wisely. Oh dear," sighed the little crab. "It is quite plain that I should have to go on walking crookedly, since not even the biggest crab in our family can show me the way to walk straight." The Frog and the Ox. One day a lot of little frogs, just grown up from tadpoles, were jumping and playing among the flowers that grew on the edge of the pond. In the meadow beyond, a herd of cattle were feeding. By and by, a young ox left the others came tramp, tramp, tramp down the pool to drink. His great horny feet going squish-squash through the soft mud plumped right into the middle of the family of frogs and crushed all but one of them to death. This one went scrambling and hopping away among the reeds to find his mother, who was sitting on a water lily leaf, croaking a tune to herself. When she saw the little frog, she asked what had happened. Breathless and terrified, he told his story. "Oh, mother, a beast, such a dreadful beast, has killed all my brothers and sisters. He had a foot as large as 20 frogs put together, and he put it on plump on top of their heads." "A beast with a foot as big as 20 frogs put together," exclaimed the mother, turning from green to yellow with rage. "Such an animal cannot be allowed to come into our meadow. I will go and fight him." "Oh, mother," croaked the little frog hoarsely, "you cannot fight him. He is much too big." "Nonsense," said the mother. "However big he is, I can make myself bigger." With that, she set to work to blow herself out with air. For frogs have no ribs, they can swallow air as much as children can swallow milk. And she swallowed mouthful after mouthful until she was swollen twice to her natural size. Then, holding her breath carefully, she demanded, "Was your strange monster as big as that?" "Oh, mother," cried the little frog in a fright, "he was ever so much bigger, and nearly as big as the mountain. And pray stop swelling yourself out with air, or you will certainly burst." "Nonsense," said the mother again. "You don't know how much air I can swallow. If the strange beast was as big as a mountain, I will go on swelling until I am as big as a mountain too." And with that, she shut her eyes and opened up her mouth as wide as it was stretched, swallowed in more and more air, while the little frog looked a terrible fright. But at last she had no ribs. She did burst. And the sound of bursting made quite an explosion in Frogland, so that all the other frogs came running to see what was the matter. The little frog, weeping over the remains, explained that his mother had burst in trying to make herself big enough to fight the ox who had squashed all her brothers and sisters. "Foolish creature," said a very old frog, gravely wagging his head. "What was it to pull herself out in that way? Even if she had made herself as big as her enemy, she would only have the air inside after all. And as it was, she did not manage to do anything but burst." The story of the bat. One fine morning, as the sun, as it climbed over the eastern shoulder of the hill, looked down upon a strange sight. In the middle of the plain below were drawn up two armies. One army was a mass of big horned heads and little woolly heads, and long tails and short tails, and bodies either rough or furry or hairy or smooth. These were the regiments of the beasts, and they were quite ready for battle. Opposite stood the enemy army. Here you might see what looked like an ocean of rainbows traveling with 1,000 wings. All around these lovely wings the sunbeams flashed as they would flash on a lot of jewels. It was the army of the birds, and they were as pretty as a field of flowers in May. Their commander, who must have certainly been an eagle, stood waiting for the beast to charge, and we can hardly doubt that his beasts were led by a king, the lion himself. But the beasts paused for a moment. Their chiefs had gathered around a curious small-winged creature who had just arrived in their midst. "Who are you?" they asked the newcomer doubtfully. "We do not think you are a beast, for you have wings." The little animal looked at his fine army which stood around him, and answered with determination. "People call me a bat," said he, "but I am most certainly a beast. I have fur all over me, and 4 legs and a lot of teeth. Look at them." He opened his mouth widely, and the chiefs of the army appeared inside. There were the teeth. "Do you want to join our army, then, and fight with us?" said the beasts. They could not deny his fur, his 4 legs, and his teeth, though they were the oddest little beasts in the world. His middle finger was as long as his head and his body put together, and he had a hook instead of a thumb. "To be I sure do," said the bat. "I would not fight on the side of those silly birds for anything." So the beast let him join their army, and the fight began. But the bat, who was a terrible little coward, did nothing but flit above the regiments and look on. But from the safe position he perceived, and by the beasts were getting the worst of it. Off flew Mr. Bat, sneaking through a dark wood that grew near the hand. Flitting silently out from the shelter of the trees, there he arrived breathless in the middle of birds. "Who are you?" cried the chief of the birds, "and what do you want here?" "People call me a bat," answered the little coward, "but I most certainly am a bird. Don't you see that I can fly? I have flown here to tell you what awful enemies the terrible beasts are doing over yonder." He told the birds about everything he wanted to do and about the plans of the beast and assured his new friends that the other army was on the verge of being beaten. So the birds rushed joyfully in the fight again, while the little cowardly bat took cover. But by and by the tide of the battle turned, and now the birds had to fall back for a time, defeated. What did Mr. Bat do but take wing as fast as possible to go and rejoin the beast? But his cowardice found out. Some birds had posted in the wood as sentries, and when they saw Mr. Bat flitting cautiously through the trees, they flew after him and took him prisoner. "Who are you?" they demanded fiercely, "and where are you going?" The bat began to shake with fright. He didn't know how to answer. If he said he was a beast, the sentries would probably kill him. If he said he was a bird, they would tell him he must be a spy going off to give information to the enemy. So he stammered and stuttered and made excuses until the sentries, out of patience, flew back with him to the bird army and took him there to his chiefs. There was great joy at that minute among the regiments of the bird. The battle had turned their way just as Mr. Bat had flown off, and now they were congratulating each other excitedly on a complete victory. "Why, here is that funny little thing again, brought back as a prisoner," they say. "What has he been doing? Is he really a bird or a beast?" "Beard." "Oh, I'm a bird," cried the wretched little bat. "I was flying through the wood to get select information for you." Select. Secret! I can't read anymore. "Information for you, and your sentries took me prisoner. But if I had told them this, they would not believe me. You, my lord, must trust me. Remember what valuable news I brought you before. Surely that could convince you enough what side I have been on for all time through." Unfortunately for the bat, the birds, at that moment, had begun to bring the other prisoners of war. Among the prisoners were very many beasts, who remembered the bat, and who, not knowing what had happened, hailed him as one of themselves. So when the chiefs of the bird had a court-martial, the bat was tried for his life. The court-martial did not execute him, however, but punished him in a very suitable manner. "Because you have said first that you were a bird and then you were a beast," declared the head of the court-martial solemnly, "you are condemned to be neither. You shall live all by yourself, shall only fly by night, and spend all the hours of daylight hanging out in the dark, out-of-the-way places, by means of your ridiculous thumb, which is nothing but a hook. As for your knees, they shall always be turned inside out so that you will never be able to walk properly. And anybody who catches you and sees quite little odd thing you are, will declare that you are quite alone in the order of creation, and belong to neither birds nor to the beasts." And that story is true. You can find out for yourself. Some fine day, if you manage to catch a bat in a barn or a cave, look at his funny wings and his furry body and his tiny teeth and his thumb, and that thousands of years ago turned into a hook. So that's it for this video today. That was some of Aesop's fables. We read a few. If you would like me to read more, I have an entire book of them. If you would like me to read other fables by other people, or if you would like me to read any other type of story, creepypasta, things like that, horror stories, I'm into horror at the moment. So if you see me like reading horror like on YouTube channels, feel free to say things you would like me to read. Bye!